Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode 57 of the book of Acts. We are in the story of the conversion of Saul, and I think I'm going to call this the crisis of a man out of fellowship. This is Saul on the road to Damascus. Now, as he went his way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. I think he sees Jesus here. This is chapter 9. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" And he said, "Who are you, Lord?" Doesn't even know Jesus, doesn't even recognize his voice. And he said, "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. But rise and enter the city of Damascus, and you will be told what you are to do." The men who were traveling with him, that's his arresting, murdering posse, stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. That's where I get that I think he saw Jesus there. Verse 8, Saul rose from the ground, and although his eyes were opened, he saw nothing. He was blind. So they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And for 3 days he was without sight and neither ate nor drank. Now there was a disciple at Damascus named Ananias. The Lord said to him in a vision, "Ananias," he said. "Here I am, Lord." And the Lord said to him, "Rise and go to the street called Straight." I love the detail. We know the name of the street in Damascus in 34 AD. "And at the house of Judas, look for a man of Tarsus named Saul. For behold, he is praying, and he has seen a vision. A man named Ananias come in and lay his hands on him so that he may regain his sight." But Ananias answered, "Lord, I have heard from many about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints at Jerusalem. And here he has authority from the chief priest to bind all who call on your name." So yesterday we find Paul named and exposed and known and found himself wrong. That is, if Jesus is alive and not dead and resurrected and not buried, then he was wrong in all his assumptions. So he gets this light, this vision, and this command to go to Damascus. So why Damascus? Why is Saul going to Damascus in the first place? Well, because he was ravaging the church. A great persecution arose, and they were scattered. That's in chapter 8, verse 1. And the question here is, will there be believers to be found in Damascus? Now, Paul went there to arrest them, but now he needs them. He needs fellowship. We have a crisis in the story today. That is, what will happen to Saul? He's a man out of fellowship. He's encountered the Lord. He's prayed to the Lord. He has a vision from the Lord, but now he needs believers. So he's been traveling with the bad guys, if you will, this murderous squad. And now, in today's story, almost, he'll be transferred to the good guys. So he's been out of the church and persecuting the church, which is kind of what people do outside the church. And he's going to be transferred into the church. Parenthetically, I wonder what happened to the guys he was traveling with, because they heard Jesus' voice. All right, so verse 7, they hear the voice, but they see no one. Saul's last vision of interest was probably of Jesus. That's what the bright light was. Verse 10, now there was a disciple at Damascus, and fortunately he's there. Fortunately he was persecuted, because that's where Saul's going to end up. And we find this guy's name. We find the street he's on, or the street he's going to, which is Straight Street, and the house that he's going to, which is the house of Judas of interest. And he's going to look for Saul. I love his answer when the Lord calls him in the vision, "Here I am, Lord." And then you just know this is real, because then he has a little argument, not an argument, but Lord. But Ananias answered, "Lord, I have heard about this man, how much evil he has done to your saints." Just, Lord, in case you didn't know, and of interest, Saul has been given authority to arrest those who call on your name. And in a sense, now Saul should be arresting himself, because he had been arrested by Jesus. He had been blinded by Jesus. He had been led to Damascus. And now he was numbered with all those who call on your name. But what was the number? How many Christians did Saul know for these 3 days? The answer is 0. So we have the crisis of a man out of fellowship. And I'm going to leave the story there today, because what a privilege it is to be handed off to the church. Here he is in crisis, in pain, in spiritual, tumult, in fasting, both of food and of water. So that means he's near death because it's been 3 days. And what a privilege it is to be handed off to the church. It's just such a great picture. Here's my definition of fellowship for today. Fellowship is those you sit knee to knee with at church. Not shoulder to shoulder, but knee to knee. So if you're just sitting knee to knee or shoulder to shoulder with people, that's not fellowship. Who are the people that you sit knee to knee with? I wonder too, second question, is if there was a squadron of guys who came to your door and I want to arrest those who call upon his name, are you in that group of people? You want to be in that group that were arrested. And the question is, what would you call on the Lord today? Maybe it's for salvation. Maybe it's, Lord, just please help me. I need you. I'm a sinner. I agree with you. But maybe for you believers, maybe it's for wisdom, or there's pain around you. I'm sure you can name someone within your emotional arm's reach that is sick, or maybe just foolish, or worse, in rebellion, or someone in your family, or someone who has suffered loss. So here's the thing today, is we're going to leave the story of Saul sitting there, fasting, praying, having seen a vision, and having absolutely no church, no people around him. Let's think about that today, and think about what a privilege it is to call on his name. That's number one. But number two, to call on his name with other believers. And we'll see how that is answered for Paul tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Please find someone to sit knee to knee with today.